So I've been giving some thought to the what's been going on in the world of AI lately, and I guess just some thoughts as far as some observations and I guess some considerations I've been giving to the subject. So I've been seeing more and more lately that there's content being created and published on the internet that's been definitely generated by AI models. And I guess what I find interesting about that is that AI is trained on the information that's on the internet. Now, as these AIs become more prolific and as AI generated content becomes more and more the norm, what we're going to find is that these AIs are being trained on the information that's been generated by AIs, and it's sort of like a mirror reflecting a mirror, in that AIs are training each other when really the spirit of and the idea behind these LLMs is that they're supposed to be trained on human knowledge, I guess you would say. And if more and more we're finding that most of the information that's generated on the internet is created by AIs, and AIs are being trained on the information created by AIs, we're becoming more and more abstracted from, I don't know per se the truth, but more and more the content that's on the internet is going to be in the spirit of a machine. And this is where people are going to get their information, or at least where people would go to an AI to look for information, and the AI will go to other AI sources. And I kind of wonder now if it's going to be harder and harder to determine what truth is, because are humans actually going to be vetting this information, or are we going to be so overwhelmed with information that's been generated by AIs that there will be no way to know what the real truth is anymore? I think it's a very interesting conundrum, and it's going to be something that we're only going to find out as the future comes. There's so many variables and, things that can change, and things that we're completely unaware of that are going to come down the pipeline that it's going to be it's a very interesting future, to say the least. Thinking about how AI models, obviously they're not conscious beings, right? But I think back to, I forget who it was. There was an engineer at Google who had said that their language model had become conscious. Now, I don't believe this, and I don't think it's reasonable to believe that any AI model right now is conscious. But I also feel like it would be easy to be caught up into thinking that way because of the way our brains work. We're pattern-seeking animals, and in whatever we do, we look for patterns, and then there's possibly asserting meaning where there isn't any. The obvious example is you look in the clouds and you see a shape and you think, oh, that's a bunny rabbit, or that's a ship, or whatever. It's not. It's just a cloud. Now, with the new LLMs, ChatGPT, Google's Bard, stuff like that, they are becoming more advanced, and the language that they respond with in their answers to questions and whatnot seems to be more human-like. But the thing to realize is that these LLMs are trained on information that's been on the internet, human language, and their basic function is to predict words. So what they do is, you'll give say ChatGPT a question, and what it's doing is it's trying to predict the next words that will come, and which will formulate a response to your question. So when that happens, it's very easy to look at those words in the response and to sort of ascribe a sort of consciousness behind that, because the patterns that you're seeing are more human-like. And it's because the model is better at predicting words. All it's doing is, it's like a math formula. You're giving a set of words which you could treat like numbers, and what the AI does is it tries to predict the best combination of words that align with your quote-unquote question, which is a series of words, or tokens as they're called. And so it becomes very easy to sort of see the responses and to ascribe this consciousness to it, because we're used to that sort of pattern. But really, it's just essentially a math function that's being performed. I guess I kind of switch gears here, and I wanted to talk about, how human activity is going to change with all of this. How people are going to start behaving, how they're going to change their behaviors with respect to, say, work and just everyday life, and how dependent people are becoming on AI as far as abstracting themselves from like basic tasks and simple, I guess you'd call them quote unquote low-level thinking things. In the recent past, people have been using things like virtual assistants to remember dates and times, and referring to Google Maps to get people places, and a lot of things that would be considered low-level thinking. And with the advancement of the AIs and how much better they're getting at being able to perform tasks, this sort of low-level, tasks that we've sort of abstracted ourselves from, that list of tasks and skills that we've cultivated have sort of, the list that AI is taking over is growing to the point where, I think that in the future people are going to sort of, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to say forget, but that they're going to be, so consumed with things that are, I guess, that would be thought of as higher level thinking, that if people were stuck in a position where they had to actually engage in some lower level tasks, like trying to utilize their short-term memory and just keeping lists of something, maybe a list of something in their head, it would just be an impossible task, because we've become so accustomed to relying on an AI assistant to do all that for us that it would basically become foreign to the average person. And it's this sort of abstraction that I think is bad in a lot of ways. Like, there's abstraction that's good. Take a car, for example. If you, you can operate a vehicle and you don't have to be a mechanic. You don't have to understand how, the internal combustion engine works. You have an interface, you have the gas pedal, the brake, the gear shift, the steering wheel, all the gadgets inside, the signal lever and stuff like that. You don't have to understand how those things work in order to successfully operate a vehicle. But I think when AI becomes so much of a prominent part in our lives that it abstracts us from even basic things that we would normally do. I think that's when it becomes a problem, because, say the power goes out and you have to try to, function as a normal human being without an AI assistant. What are you going to do? I think that it's going to be, obviously AI is a great convenience, and it can do a lot of things for us, but it's when we become dependent upon it, and it becomes so interwoven into how we function as human beings that it's going to become a problem. I just think that, while there's so many good things that can come from AI as far as, like creativity and stuff like that, and using it as a tool to help you, I can see it very quickly becoming a crutch for a lot of people who, without the AI, would not be able to function, in, say, the domains that they are in. I just think that we're entering into a realm that's completely undiscovered, completely new, and we don't understand, and we have no concept of what the impacts of that is going to be. And it's great in a lot of ways, but it's also really scary, because we're heading into uncharted territory, and it's life changing, and it's society changing, and it's civilization changing, and there's really no way to know where it's going until it gets there. So I don't know. I guess that's all I had to say about it for now. I'm sure there's going to be more coming, as more videos coming as things develop, but these were some of my sort of initial thoughts on the whole thing, and I don't know, I guess we'll see when we get there.